I just think we need more and more and more people to talk about the goodness that exists and not necessarily always try to put a dollar amount to a solution. I just think instead of saying, hey, this is a Series A startup and the valuation is X $100 million, and yeah, they've raised funding from tier one investors, instead of that narrative, you know what, let's talk about how a startup or a solution is actually driving change and impacting hundreds of lives, which we don't even know who those lives are. And so that's the narrative that we need to change and really talk the language of social impact.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inner Wealth, the Forbes Ignite podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Cacal, CEO of Forbes Ignite, and every week I'll be sharing with you my conversations with unique, creative, and innovative people across all different industries. These are people who are intellectually curious explorers who are also redefining what it means to be successful today. From personal to professional, we cover it all to understand what drives our guests to blaze their own trails and create nimble solutions within the industries that touch each of our lives. Our guest today is Shaloo Garg, Managing Director, Late-Stage Startups and Unicorns at Microsoft. Throughout her personal journey, she has traveled extensively and lived in many different locations growing up, which has shaped the way she views the world. She is passionate about fostering and nurturing social impact startups in the tech space. Instead of talking about the ROI of social impact initiatives, she points out the need to focus on the rippling effects in society. We talk about everything from using technology to solve a community's problem, finding and developing your motivation to make an impact, helping social entrepreneurs, and more. I know you're gonna love what she has to say. Here's our chat. Hey, Shaloo, how's it going? It is so wonderful for you to be here, and thanks so much for joining.
Absolutely, Nicole. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited and looking forward to this conversation here today.
I know you have a really, really busy plate full of things that you do when it comes to personal and professional. So tell me what you've been up to lately.
You know, the last couple of years have been very interesting for me, both from a personal and professional spectrum. And I would say what has been interesting for me is really learning about myself more than anything else. Mm-hmm. And what I've come out of, or I would say what I've come out with in the last couple of years is I have discovered some key areas where I had zero interest in, and now I'm diving into, for example, painting.
Oh, wow.
It's so bizarre. Like I was never even, I was such a bad sketch student, even when I was in school, but now I'm like painting, large portraits, and it's like therapy for me right now. So that's a big one for me, just learning more about myself and sort of self-reflection. The other thing is just, work, a lot of professional work. Of course, I work at Microsoft, but beyond that, a lot of philanthropic work and some really exciting projects that I'm getting engaged in right now, which are just leveraging technology to push the envelope. So good stuff.
No, that sounds really exciting. And I couldn't agree with you more, especially with art therapy. I've done quite a bit of that myself over the past couple of years. So I feel like we're on the same journey there.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because, and again, very basic stuff, but as you explore with different colors, I'm not getting philosophical here, okay, Nicole, but it just draws out different palettes, different shades, different moods of the day, and gives you some breathing room to really reflect on your life in the past and moving forward as well. So I do agree.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I don't really believe in that right brain, left brain type of thing. I really feel like it's a combination. And like you said, it dictates a certain mood that you're in. And art therapy has the power to do that. So that's really interesting.
Absolutely. It does.
I've known you for quite some time.
Yeah.
But I never really talked to you about your story. So I would love to know about your personal and professional journey leading up to where you are today.
So, I was born in India and I grew up in Middle East. My dad was an aeronautical engineer building 747 planes back then, ages ago. And he was stationed in Middle East. We traveled quite a bit within Middle East. And I remember on an average, I would be in a class for like less than a year. So you can imagine how many schools I must have changed during my school years. It was all great stuff. It gave me exposure to people, to different cultures, to different food, to different way of living. I remember sometimes you would be living in amazing, amazing big homes. The other times you would be like hiding in tents, right? And so I do believe that that whole experience has grounded me a lot as a person. And what and who I am today is primarily because of that experience that I had while growing up. But something that has truly defined and shaped me who I am to be today is when I was back in middle school, my neighbor and I just became good friends. And I remember coming back from school and just throwing my school bag and just hopping on across the wall just to go to her place and play. Of course, things are very different now. It's all social media. So the way we communicate is totally different than what we did years ago. And I remember, one day I just thought, I'm like, hey, every time I come back, she's always there. I never see her at school. Her two older brothers are with me in the school bus when we go to school, but I never see her. And I developed a sort of jealousy, which is a very normal human emotion, that how come I have to just work hard all the time? I'm going to school. I asked her, I talked to my parents about it. Long story short, she was not allowed to go to school because she was a girl. And it bothered me. I had a lot of questions, but I never really got answers to it before I moved on to another location. And then, she was sort of out of my life. But years down the line, when I was doing my MBA, technology at that time was one of the electives. Now, this is way back then. And I remember I was very excited about technology. One of the projects that I got was use technology to solve an issue in your community, right? And it could be any issue. And she stood out to me because I just feel that even though I moved away from that location, she was always bothering me in my head, that why is she not allowed to go to school? And so I recommended a very small tech solution as part of my project. And that, whatever the outcome was, of course, I got some good grades, but just the learning process that took me through that project gave me a lot of, I would say, excitement and a lot of thought-provoking ideas that, gosh, like there's so much that can be done. And so, of course, I took up a job in a tech company. I was doing mergers and acquisitions, go to market, all the good stuff. But then I felt myself being drawn towards issues that exist in the community. And the net of it took me some time to figure out, do I want to do it for money? Do I want to do it for driving change? What is it that I really want to do? And the net of it was, I will not care about money and I'll give my time and effort and knowledge to drive change. And so I just started volunteering. And Nicole, believe it or not, I live in the Bay Area. One of the things that I would do is I would go to like Stanford Hospital over the weekend in a juvenile diabetes unit and just volunteer for hours, just reading books for the kids there.
Wow.
Right. I would keep doing these things because I was trying to find myself, like, who am I and what motivates me? Money obviously was not there. Do people motivate me? Maybe, but then change, getting them from one place to even a better place using technology was ultimately what I found was my passion. It was my calling. And I just felt that, I'm here to drive that change. And so, a lot of things happened after that. I joined the UN Women Board. I've been driving a lot of initiatives around innovation, gender equity, addressing human sex trafficking issues. There's just been tons of stuff. Now with metaverse coming in, there are already conversations that are happening online that even more issues are going to emerge from Web 3.0, metaverse, just like any other technology. How do we address that? And so that's been primarily my core journey. And I just feel that, oftentimes life's experiences define and bring you to a point who you are and what you're here to do. And if you can find that during the course of your lifetime, it doesn't have to be early on in your teenage years or in your 20s, 30s, whatever age you're at. If you can find that and really sort of develop that inherently, that's what is meant to be. And Nicole, I'm like so crazy. So I took this passion into my professional life, right? So I usually keep philanthropic work that I do very, very separate from my professional work, because although they are sort of interconnected, but professional work is professional work. And philanthropic work is different. I joined Microsoft in 2019, and that is when I saw that, gosh, this is, we're in a tech company. We've got these amazing offerings. Why are we not doing anything for social entrepreneurs? We should be doing something for them. And so I built this whole initiative and a whole programmatic offering for social entrepreneurs, and which was, again, that offering was launched in year 2020 at Davos, just around Microsoft Global Social Entrepreneurship Program. And so I do think, all these experiences in life leading me perhaps to a better place in the next few years, which I don't know what it's going to be, but I know that where I was growing up, we have definitely come a very long way from there.
That is incredible and such a beautiful story. I couldn't agree with you more that your environment, the way you were brought up, and everything has so much an effect of your transformative years, and you're helping other people transform as well. And you and I have something in common. My father was in the military, so I ended up moving around a lot as a child as well. So I 100% agree with you that it changes you.
Yeah. And, it also grounds you as a human being and gives you a different perspective. So I always say this to my kids. I have two kids. I have a teenage daughter and a preteen son. And I tell them, I say, guys, your biggest issue in life is that your iPhones are not charged. That's what their problem is, right? And their phones are not charged. They're like, oh my God, where's my charger? What's going on? And what I keep telling them is that the world is much bigger than that, right? And so these experiences not only help you define who you are, but also define the values that you carry as an individual, as a human being. For example, hard work. Like, I grew up in a war zone during that time in the Middle East. And so for me, I know hard work, there is no shortcut to success.
Right.
I also know that everything is not constant. Today, I'm in this school. Tomorrow, I may have to move. So that changes me that, hey, I need to adapt very quickly. So I do agree that, it definitely changes you as a person and defines who you are in your life.
And it has such a huge influence on where you went with your career and what you're doing today. And you're working with social entrepreneurs, social impact startups. And I'm just curious, what is it like working with both the unicorn startups and the social impact startups at Microsoft?
So look, most of the unicorns are, I would say, in the commercial space. And I define commercial space as, in simple language, non-social impact startups. Now, that doesn't mean social impact startups are not commercial startups, but I'm talking about, startups that are in AI and let's say in healthcare, fintech services, so on and so forth. So their growth trajectory is actually super fast than a typical social impact startup. Now, you could have me speaking for hours on why we are not doing enough in social impact space and why is that space so underserved when it comes to venture capital dollars and private equity investors. Why is it that we don't see enough momentum in that space, which is very disheartening to see, but that's a separate conversation. Unicorns, on the other hand, are flooded with dollars, right? I was reading an article the other day from McKinsey, which said that last year itself, in year 2021, the maximum venture dollars went towards XYZ industry, right? And social impact was not even on the list. And there were like 10 industries that were listed, or areas or solutions were listed. It will not even make it to the top 10 list. So again, what is similar between unicorns and social impact startups is they're all about innovation. They're all about entrepreneurship. They're all about driving change and challenging the status quo, right? And that's what both the market segments work towards. Now, growth trajectory is a separate conversation. Unicorns move much faster, and social impact startup, in all honesty, are much slower. But that's not because of what they do. It's how our market defines them and funds those startups.
That's 100% true. And do you think we'll ever see a social impact unicorn?
That's a great question. Most of the conversations that are happening since the beginning of this year 2022, have been focused on the emergence from the COVID-19 pandemic response, the global economic recovery, climate action, technology innovation, global collaboration. I mean, I really hope that we see a social impact unicorn soon. There are quite a few on my list that I just keep it on my watch list globally, some of the startups. But, I also want us to be a little pragmatic in the time and the year that we are in. So this year, 2022, actually started with a note of uncertainty. If you think about it, there was the Omicron COVID-19 virus, which was spreading across the globe. Mm-hmm. The risk of climate crisis continues to loom over. The economic recovery and the development seem to stall, right? Then there is a gap between the rich and the poor, which is even spreading wider. So, again, we would love to see rapid growth in this space, but we also have to be pragmatic, the time and place that we are in. Now, if you ask me, have we done better than where we were 10 years ago? Absolutely. Oh my God, we've come a long way, and maybe we'll be in a better place in the next 10 years. The question is, do we really have to wait for 10 years to see that change? And what can we do today to drive that change rapidly?
That's such a great question. What can we do today rather than wait for 10 years to try to see any sort of exponential progress? And sometimes it's not always about exponential progress. It's about incremental progress that you could do each day. And that has a cumulative effect.
No, absolutely. I think the first thing, and I see this all the time, Nicole, is we need to continue fostering and encouraging more entrepreneurs to come into the social impact space. And it can be demotivating at times because, number one, the funding is very less compared to the commercial startups. That's the nature of the world that we live in, right? Number two, there aren't too many success stories, right? Back to your question, how many unicorns have we actually seen? Number three, which I personally believe, and I constantly fight with myself on this, is when you look at a commercial startup, you can categorically say that in a period of 10 years, for example, we will be able to see 5x to 6x growth. Hypothetically, right? I'm just giving an example. Whereas in a social impact startup, you may be able to say, well, maybe I'll just make like a 1x, 2x ROI over a period of 10 years. But what we are forgetting is the rippling effect that a social impact startup has on our economy, community, and society. So let me give you an example on this. There was a female founder that I was working with in year 2021, and I was actually mentoring her towards the beginning. She was building a clean water solution for a very rural area in Turkey. And, when I looked at the business model, I was like, interesting. And she was using an IoT solution. Now, IoT used to be like, we are further ahead, right? But in certain countries in the world, IoT is still a big deal. And so I started talking to her and I was like, well, maybe you want to use some algorithms for machine learning, automate this, so on and so forth. She was able to successfully launch that solution. And now, of course, that community gets clear water. Now, if you ask me, what is the ROI out of that? I don't know. I don't know what revenue she's made out of it. But look at the impact that she's driven in her community. Number one, clean water, which means reduce debts. Less number of debts create more job opportunities. Right now, there are more people who are employed. It actually encourages the economy and the GDP overall, right? Now, of course, there are more people living. So now you have more educated people. You have need for education. You'll have need for jobs. You'll have need for financial incentives. So that is the rippling effect that I'm speaking about, which we often discount or don't even talk about. All we talk about is ROI. And it's pretty disheartening. But those, I would say, would be the top three.
And that's a great example as well. And it just comes to show that when it comes to social impact startups, we need different metrics. There's different ways to prove progress. And especially with the clean water example, like she's making such a huge impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, back to your question, what can we do? That's the narrative that we need to change and really talk the language of social impact.
I absolutely love that. We need to change the narrative of what we've been seeing and what we've been hearing over the past couple of decades. And it's only now that a lot of organizations, a lot of people, aspiring founders, they get it. And they want to have these conversations. And we just need to shoot up that beacon and convene all these people that can move these things forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're doing a lot of incredible, incredible work. And I'm curious to know, who were some of your heroes and who inspired you?
That's a great question. So, my biggest hero is my mom, who's no longer here. And I think of her every day. She motivates me every day. And that's because when she was alive, she sacrificed a lot to send me and my sister to school, just personal sacrifices to make sure that we are well educated and set up for success. The age that I'm in today, I remember when she was at that age, although Nicole, I'm not that old, I just continue to think of her and how she conducted herself and the kind of things that she did. She never had a job, but she always did a lot of giving back charity work within the area that we lived in. So she's my number one hero. And, look, there are a lot of personalities there that I can go on and on. I'm just enamored by Fumzeli, who used to be UN Women Executive Director, who's based out of South Africa. Met her so many times. She's just phenomenal, just very selfless and giving back. And again, a lot of folks, I got to tell you, my role models are also my kids, my own kids who are Gen Zs and who continue telling me that, Mom, you need to grow up. I keep telling them what, but I'm learning so much from them, right? How they view the world, and which is so different from the way we view the world. My daughter is a teenager. She's already a lot into sustainability. When I was a teenager, I had no idea what sustainability even meant at that time. And so, all around us, I think I have a long list of folks, but I would say the way I look at role models is everyone is a role model for each other. So you're a role model, Nicole. You've done phenomenally well at Forbes Ignite. Look from where you started a couple of years ago. I remember the first conversation we had and where you are today, right? And so I think we just continue to feed each other, and that's the way it is.
Yeah, I love that. And we always talk about that mentor-mentee relationship.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the reverse mentorship model. I don't really know a better word for it or a better phrase for it, but we're constantly learning from each other. So it's not a one-way street. So I love that you're learning from your kids. As Gen Zers, they see the world in a very different lens, which we can learn a lot from.
Yeah.
And your kids have developed their own values. Gen Zers have their own values. And so I'd love to know, as a woman in tech, what are your values and how have they shaped the decisions you've made?
That's a very good question. And thank you for bringing that. I think we constantly, every time we have a conversation, we need to bring in values as sort of a paradigm anchor in that conversation. Because in my view, values is what defines us as a person. And there are no good values. There are no bad values. They're just your values. And that's what it is. So for me, I think the number one thing in my books is working hard. There are no shortcuts to success. And I take that from my dad because, I saw him in the aeronautical engineering space with a very heavy timeline pressure back then. Sometimes he used to do night shifts, come back early in the morning, sleep for 4 hours, go back again in the afternoon. And so working hard is sort of in my DNA, and it comes very naturally to me. So if someone says, hey, 80% of the work is done and you just need to do 20, I usually avoid that situation. I just don't enjoy it. I'm like, okay, let me start from the beginning and let me build it up. So working hard is phenomenal. And the best part about working hard is failure. Because failure is what increases the sweetness of success.
Yes.
And once you fail after you've worked hard, there's a different high in it. There's a different thrill in it because I just feel that I've learned so much coming out of it. Even though I have failed, I've just learned so much that I've become even more stronger to succeed the next time around. So that's number one. Number two is I hate taking no sitting down. That's not who I am. So, if I'm putting some time and effort into something and you come and tell me, well, this is not good enough, I'm going to push back and I'm going to say, okay, well, tell me, how can I do things differently? What can we do? So, and this is something that I continue to share with my mentees, the female founders who I'm constantly coaching and guiding, who constantly say, hey, we're not getting enough funding. What should we do? And this is one principle that I strongly follow is just don't take no sitting down. Always question, always challenge the status quo. And then number three is train your brain muscle to always give back. And I have this thought that's been in my mind for many years is we've all come into this world in the same way. We all are born in the same way. And, we are all going to leave this universe in a similar way. Now, me personally, I just think, what is a legacy I want to leave behind, right? So when I know that I'm going to leave this place, this world, I'm going to ask myself, well, I have two options. I can either say, gosh, like I've had an amazing life. Look at the jobs that I've had, amazing kids and a beautiful house. And I've been to 20 countries across the world. Or I can say, yes, I've had a good life, but I've been able to drive impact or change the lives of people who I have never even met with, who don't even know that I exist today. So what is my legacy? I think I'll choose the latter. Not that the first one is bad, but that's the legacy that I want to live with and leave behind, is always train the brain muscle to give back. If I'm getting something from you today, I will give it away to somebody else tomorrow, right? In some other form and shape. So those are my top three values that I am extremely passionate about. And they also center me as a person of who I am.
No, I can definitely tell that those are your values based on who you are and the work that you do. And just by conversing with you, I can tell that it shines through even without you telling me. So those are some wonderful values to have. So that's the perfect segue into my next question for you, which I actually ask every one of my guests on the podcast. How would you define success?
That is a very interesting question. I have seen success being defined on various spectrums. Sometimes success is about money, or success is about getting into an Ivy League, or success is about getting into Fortune 100 companies, so on and so forth. And trust me, I have been there. I have gone through that journey as a human being where I wanted to get into an Ivy League, then I wanted a best paying job. Once I started earning, gosh, like I wanted all the Gucci's and the Pradas of the world. I've gone through that journey. But ultimately, I think what really success means, and this is my definition, is a balance between a happy mind and inner peace. So we always talk about mental health and we talk about how it's important to be centered. And so for me, when I have a happy mind, when I'm calm in my mind, and then when I have inner peace, where I'm not restless and I'm really stationed and centered, to me, that is success. And it takes time because a situation has to bring you to that place, right? It's not that early in the morning, I'll just get up and I'll say, gosh, I have inner peace and I have a happy mind, so I'm successful. I just think the scenarios and the situations in life bring you to that place. And if you're able to bring yourself to a happy state of mind, I think that you're successful because you're rich in other aspects, which are not necessarily monetary or financial in nature, but you have the most healthy mind at that point. Hope that makes sense.
I would say that you and I have that in common where we're definitely aligned. And I love your definition of success.
I remember the first time you and I met a couple of years ago, and it was a web conference because by that time COVID had already hit. We just took off. And I think we were feeding off each other's energy. So let me ask you, like you being a woman, a female founder, has established this business. And I've seen you taking it from 0.0 to, like 0.20, and you have much, much more to go. What drives you? Like, what is the message you want to give the listeners today? I would love to hear it from you because, I'm constantly talking to female founders. So would love to hear it from you.
So like you said, we've known each other for quite some time and you've seen Forbes Ignite from its infancy up until now. So you've been through it all.
Yeah.
And so as a female founder, what drives me is being able to tell people and show people that everyone is creative, because I believe that creativity is the cornerstone of innovation. And I tell this to everyone, and I say this repeatedly, but it's something that I deeply believe in. When I was going through my own personal journey, when I did my career pivot from finance into what I do now, I always believed that creativity is not something that you necessarily are just born with or that you learn over the course of one day. This is a skill that you develop. And that is something that I found through my mentors and through people that have shaped the way that I approach challenges in life. They showed me that I too am creative.
That's great.
Yeah. And through that ability, I can show other people that they have the same capabilities as well. So I'm really passionate about that and applying that sort of creativity into problem solving for systemic challenges around the world. And I'm really passionate about impact. And I think that's why we really hit it off, because we have that in common and we're solving the same challenges, but in different ways. So I hope that makes sense.
It does. It does. And thank you for all the awesome work that you're doing at Forbes Ignite and beyond, and really giving back to the community in your own ways. So awesome work.
No, thank you, Shaloo. And it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope that we get to do a part 2 of this, because there's so much more that I want to ask you and talk to you about. But it has been such a pleasure speaking with you. And I hope we get to do this again soon.
Likewise, Nicole. And thank you very much for the opportunity. I sincerely appreciate it. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's it for this week's episode of Inner Wealth. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and that you'll join us next week as we continue to explore all the ways success is being redefined in our ever-changing world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite podcast app, and follow us on Instagram at Forbes Ignite for more thought-provoking content and opportunities to engage with us. I'm your host, Nicole Cacal. Thanks for joining us.